Michael Jackson was gone, but the empire he built didn't disappear with him. In fact, it was about to become even bigger. His estate was now managing his interests in Sony ATV, and Sony was still sitting on the other side of the partnership, 50 Sony, 50 Michael's estate. But instead of letting the catalog stand still, the partnership kept expanding. Then, in 2011, something enormous happened. Sony, the Michael Jackson estate, and other investors agreed to acquire EMI Music Publishing. The investor group agreed to purchase EMI Music Publishing from Citigroup for $2.2 billion. Think about that. Michael was no longer alive, yet his estate was now participating in one of the biggest music publishing deals in history. EMI wasn't some small collection of songs. It contained more than 1.3 million music copyrights. And now Michael's estate had a stake in an investment, connected to an enormous catalog of music from artists and songwriters around the world. Sony ATV's management would help oversee EMI Music Publishing for the investor group, so the partnership between Sony and Michael's estate wasn't disappearing. It was becoming even more powerful. Then in June 2012, the EMI acquisition was completed. Sony confirmed the transaction closed on June 29, 2012. Sony or ATV and EMI together represented millions of copyrights. The business had become an enormous force in music publishing. Sony stated in 2012 that Sony or ATV and EMI together represented more than 2 million copyrights. And here's the twist. Michael had spent years fighting Sony. Yet after his death, his estate was doing business with Sony again. The relationship had changed. There was no Michael standing across the table anymore. Instead, the estate was negotiating for his legacy. But Sony still had something Michael's estate owned, half of Sony or ATV. And eventually, one question would become impossible to avoid. Would Sony ever buy Michael's remaining half? The answer would come years later. But before that, Sony made a move that would change everything. Would Sony finally buy Michael's half? The estate still owned 50. Sony owned the other 50. Who do you think had the stronger position? Leave your take in the comments. Next episode. Sony makes its move. The right to buy Michael's remaining stake had existed for years, then Sony finally exercised it. Subscribe for part 11. The Michael Jackson vs. Sony story continues.